Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. I have the distinct honor and pleasure to be bringing you the first ever official look at Andromeda's Edge. And we're about 5 to 5.5 months away from this actually launching over on Gamefound. There is a link down below where you can go follow along. I believe about 8,000 or 9,000 people are already there at the point of recording this video. And this is just going to be a conversation. We've played through multiple times now, we're doing multiple gameplays on camera to share with you over the course of the next few months, and I've actually had one of the publishers down here, Peter Vaughn, to highlight and showcase and just show off this game. Now, this video is not going to be my typical structured preview video, because it really isn't that. This is a pre-production prototype. A prototype before the actual prototype arrives. There'll be a lot of content creators, myself including, getting another wave of Andromeda's Edge coverage in about 3 months. This is the working, travel to conventions, play test, tear apart, and rebuild type of prototype. One that some publishers never show the audience. But Cardboard Alchemy is approaching this from the side of information. They actually have a Discord community that's already up and running that allows you to play games like Dwellings of Eldervale, Flamecraft, and of course, playtest and help them refine Andromeda's Edge. So they've been really straight with the community. They want you to know exactly what you're able to get by the time you can hit that back and support button. So this is going to be me talking about the mechanics, talking about some of the things that I think are cool, talking about some of the things that maybe won't work for you yet. I want to give you information. That's it. I've got plenty of time for you to get excited about this game. It's going to be launching in January, so there'll be so much more information coming out. But for now, I want to let you know what Andromeda's Edge is doing, what it's trying to do, and where it fits in the line of other titles, kind of its predecessor, Dwellings of Eldervale, which is a game that has rocketed to the top of so many people's lists and is near impossible to get your hands on due to shipping and distribution and all of that. This will actually be accessible and available. The other cool thing is that Cardboard Alchemy, a year to date from the launch of Flamecraft, a project that did 30,000 backers, has actually started delivering their last game. 5 months before launching this one. It's kind of an unheard of tale here in the board game world. Those of you that follow along with shipping and Kickstarter and delays and people asking for more money kind of understand how cool that is. That games are arriving to backers' hands within 365 days of pledging for it on that original project launch. All right, let's talk about this. Like I said, more relaxed, more guttural. I have some flavor text even to read that's just stuck on my phone. So those of you that love Dwellings of Eldervale will already understand the genre that Luke Laurie is working in when he approaches Andromeda's Edge. It's that worker placement with a bit of Euro mechanics. It's got the mix of dice rolling for combat, location and area control here on the main tableau, and a ton. And I would argue deeper tableau building, deeper programming than Dwellings did. It's easier to get your engine up and running here, and you even have a bit more variability depending on the faction that you're playing and how you customize them throughout the course of play. I'll get into all of that as I chat, but let's start with the setting, the scene, because this pre-production copy has a few things going for it. Cool little minis that allow ships to actually pop onto them. There's this building mechanic where pieces go on top of your ship, because that's your settlement ship, and then your leaders pop in to be the telescope or the top of the building. But there's a lot of stuff missing as well. I mean, finished artwork on half of the components here. There's extra factions, there's more cards, there's the refinement of the icons. Really, this is just a conversation around the mechanics, because there's not a lot of other, what can I say? That extra little bit of detail that Cardboard Alchemy puts into their titles isn't here yet. That happens during the launch phase. That happens over the next 5 months. That happens when you get to production. This is, despite how it looks, I would argue, still an ugly prototype. Andromeda's Edge. You are a desperate faction fleeing from an oppressive force known only as Unity. You've traveled far, to the edge of the Andromeda galaxy, seeking refuge and a new beginning. You have a handful of starships and a space station sourcing what you can extract from nearby moons: ice, nanocarbon, titanium, and energy. You are able to make use of modular debris, remnants from a predecessor civilization. You build up your station, but you also use resources and leaders to help construct grand planetary developments. From big cities to tall obelisks, alliance bases at the edge provide little refuge, but are key to your actions. You must work fast. Resources are scarce, and other desperate civilizations have the exact same idea. Meanwhile, galactic raiders are emerging out of mysterious nebula, intent on battling you for supremacy of Andromeda. So that's where we find ourselves here. We're one of variable factions with our own player board, with starting abilities, but really not much of a tableau at the very beginning of the game. And what you're seeing here is actually a completed gameplay with all of the chits and pieces and tokens out and everything that we've been able to do. This is Andromeda, and this borderline here is going to be the nebula, or Andromeda's edge per se. We have planets, and then we have moons out here on the side that'll give us actions or resources. I'll go through those in just a second. But this edge area is going to be where you collect better bonuses, but also put yourself at slightly higher risk by journeying out there. There's only a few select vessels that can actually make that bridge, but if you do, like I said, you'll have a significant advantage because of it. Up here is going to be our technology tracks. We have civilization, commerce, this is supremacy, science, and industry. Each one of those tokens is a marketplace where you can buy and add to your own tableau, building out the actions that you can take and escalating the course of the game. You also have tracks on each one of these that you get from accomplishing certain feats or going and purchasing and building that type of research. As you expand there, you'll move up the tracks, getting other bonuses throughout the course of play as well. And finally, this will be an area where there's a lot of endgame scoring and scoring objectives. Depending on what buildings you have and how high you are on the track, you'll end up doubling or tripling your score for that final crescendo. The win-loss condition of the game comes down to victory points. The object of the game is right now to cross 50, 60, or 70, depending on how long you want your play experience to be. Now, some things, of course, will be highly variable between now and when it actually launches, and there's a chance that endgame trigger might change, and the entire event structure might change. But at the moment, over here on this board, you're going to be tracking the different events and tiles that come out. Andromeda here will start to grow, with new locations appearing as you hit different event thresholds. This track here is tracking the time. Every time you take an action, like going to purchase some tiles or playing specific cards that have an impact on the galaxy around you, you'll press this time track forward, spawning an event and potentially having positive or negative impacts on everyone else. Sometimes you'll gain resources, other times you'll spawn the equivalent of a Death Star into the galaxy, and it'll start ripping everyone apart, of course, unless you can defeat it. Now, this is not a cooperative game, so watching a Death Star come in does not mean you're suddenly working together. It means you're trying to throw other people in front of the bus as quickly and effectively as possible. Remember, it's that common motto. You don't have to run away. You don't have to be faster than the giant space-eating worm. You just have to be faster than the ship behind you. So, that's that track up there. That's this planetary area here, and we have our research track or our event track over here. We each also have our own player boards. We'll have our unique ability, our custom cards. For instance, I was playing the Dark Star Acolytes. Now, the Dark Star has a starting set of resources and then also a special ability. In my case, if I had no more ships left in my dock, which is my playable zone, I actually get a ghost ship that can go activate any one of these locations on its own, and then I get to recall everyone. The game flows in kind of two phases right now. You have a phase where you're going out, placing ships, collecting resources, taking actions, doing all of that nonsense. And then you have a phase where you recall. You pull all of your ships back, whether they've been broken and destroyed, they're in the scrapyard, if they're on planets here. The only things you don't pull back are ships like this that have been built into the foundation of a civilization. These ships pop back into your tableau, and you'll start triggering your hierarchy here. The different technologies that you have, allowing you to invest power to trigger more of them, and chaining a giant combination of effects. I can gain resources, spend the resources for brand new ship parts, convert those into cards or actions, tactics that I can play that I can then use to spawn more energy, to spawn more abilities, to gain more points. There's really sometimes 10 or 15 things that you're suddenly chaining all together. Luke Laurie has this principle of not wanting your recession turn to be something that's not fun. Every turn in this game is fun. When you're taking an action and placing a ship out, you're doing something to move your galaxy forward. And then when you're pulling ships back, when you're just recharging, you're suddenly running this engine that you've been purpose building for the last 3 or 4 cycles of the game. And if you do it right, you can really dig into the engine building portion of this. I mean, there is so many combinations, so many different factions and abilities and ways that everything tie together that it's hard for me to even thoroughly go into it. You'll have a resource track down here, and then you'll have your ships. Now, you can see some of my opponents, like Devin over here, has built out these not very pretty yet looking ship parts. These are going to be upgrades, and there's a lot of them available to everyone around the table. You'll be able to change the nature of your ship, giving them more attack damage, allowing them to move farther, giving them special abilities depending on what locations they are, how they're interacting with the world. It's really important, and I didn't do much of it. And yet, I was still highly competitive, if not contentious, for the win when I played. Because every one of these little elements that I'm talking about, from the research tracks to building buildings on the bases, to developing your technology, building your programming, or investing in ships in your dockyard, all of it is conditional. None of it is directly required to playing a good game of Andromeda's Edge. However, all of it does sync and tie together, meaning that if you let one part fall or slide too far, you'll have to make up for it in powerful other ways. Like my ghost ship was able to accommodate for that special ability that I was talking about when it comes to actually building new technology. I kind of didn't want a lot of ships in my game. So that's the core structure. The way the gameplay flow will actually work is everyone, one at a time, will grab one of their transport ships, place it out on a location here on the board, depending on if it's the first spawn or if they already have ships out there, they might be restricted in where they can place. If it's my first placement out, I can go kind of anywhere that's unoccupied. And then if it's my second placement out, I actually have to stay within the distance or the range of my ship to the ship that was already on the board, because we're kind of traveling together and then spawning out from that point. The actions on the board are pretty simple. You have some locations like the Maximus Field and the Odessa Sector that allow you to purchase brand new technology, giving you more things to add to your tableau and upping you on each one of those tracks. You have the Monolith of the Ancients, which is going to convert resources into tactics cards, and these cards can be played throughout your turn and other players' turns to give you advantages on attack rolls, new special abilities, more resources, all the goodies that you can imagine. We spent a lot of time actually precision playing a lot of our tactics cards, and it's probably one of the most rewarding parts of the game so far. We have the shipyard, where you can construct new ships by paying the resource cost at the top of your board, or you can do a repair action, because some of your stations, docks, and ships will get broken. We also have a development office where you can actually start constructing these new monoliths, and if you see, your ships actually click on, and your people pop out. So, like, we have the village here. That's just one of my ships underneath, and then 3 of my leaders stuck on top to be the, head or the crown of the buildings. I really like that little mechanic, that little twist where these are actually resources you need to build those things. So you kind of have to have what you have to have in order to start constructing. But then it gives this aesthetic principle. The world looks similar and yet unique and yet different. And I like that a lot. We have the trade hub, which is going to allow you to convert resources into coins. Coins are wild resources by the end of the game. Not by the end of the game, just during the course of the game. And then we have various different locations that are just planets. Now, each of these planets that still have moon tokens available will let you take one of these moon tokens back to your board. These moon tokens are bonuses or extra resources, and you can discard them to convert them to resources immediately. But on top of that, you can actually lock them into locations. Like if we look over here at Shira's location here, she actually has 4 locked into her board and 1 locked into her corner slot over there. Or I have 1 and 2. Now those give you reoccurring actions that you can take. So even the tableau that you're building and the way that you convert resources when you, let's say, get destroyed or pull back your ships, that is also interchangeable and customizable, which is really important and really powerful because even if I have the same set of cards, but the tokens that I'm using are different, the way that I trigger and sequence actions are going to be entirely unique. Now, if you only have a blank spot left on the board, that means all the moon tokens have been taken, you'll just gather that resource, and each one of these locations can hold up to 1 building of the designated type, showing the cost. and the amount of leaders that you need necessary to construct that. You have to have a ship in that location, and then you have to go to a build or development office, either in your tableau with your architect or here on the board, to actually be able to lock in and construct one of your little units. If I can figure out exactly how this goes in, just like this. Perfect. And then we have a nice little research hub. And we have smokestacks that pop in there on top. I just think that's the coolest thing. I love the aesthetic of it. So that's the core flow of the game. You're going to be playing out these actions. You're going to be taking actions on the board to trigger any of those kind of effects. And then once you have all your ships out there, you'll do a recall phase where you pull everyone back and you invest here in your tableau, placing them down on specific locations, giving you whatever actions that location is tied to, and potentially spending more energy in order to get more of those kind of chaining multipliers. Once the event track is hit, you'll draw an event card, you'll go through what that happens, spawning a new location on the board from Andromeda's Edge, putting out more moon tokens, giving everyone the opportunity to collect more resources, and of course, spawning enemies, because we haven't talked about the effect of the attack phase or the effect of that yet. So there will be a AI system in the game that's fairly simple. They're things for you to bump up against, and you'll have a whole variety or a whole slew of different types of enemies that can pop out on the board. Just here we have the Ice Pirates, the Saucerian Abductors, we have the Ion Storm, and we have the Victorian Striker. These are ships that have their own custom abilities and their own rules around how they move around, where they want to trigger, and if they invite or keep other people from attacking. The core rule for fighting is going to be as such. If you place your ship and activate a zone within a location where another player is, for instance, if I popped in right here with orange, I would suddenly be triggering a battle at the end of my turn. I get to resolve everything that's there already, I get the benefit of the location, but then we're fighting. Now, once we trigger a battle, we will invite people around us to come join. If your travel distance is within range of battle that's happening, any of your ships, including the AI that are around the board, can suddenly pop in there and join you for a fight. And this is a winner-takes-all fight. You'll then be able to play tactics cards, giving you the chance to cancel the fight, close the doors, sail yourself away, or just buff yourself up. Then you'll roll dice. You roll dice depending on the value of your ship and how many ships are there. There's a really cool escalating system here where if you're rolling, let's say, 3 dice, that means I would be able to re-roll 1s and 2s if my attack value was a 3. I really like that system because for me, it gives that mitigation. It allows you to be stronger in some cases, but it means that a level 1 ship rolling this and hitting a 6 could still pull off the victory. It does happen. We have seen it, although it doesn't happen so often. The dice in this game feel very controlled. They feel very specific. Combination of what ships you move in with, how much you've upgraded them, the tactic cards that you're playing, and of course the way that you're rolling your dice and how you're able to mitigate those lower numbers gives you a lot of control over the edge of the board. And then on top of that, let's say you're one of the losers from the battle and we get wiped out. We'll move down here to the scrapyard and we'll resolve our tactical operations. That allows us to possibly drop a tactic card or lock in one of these moon tokens down here and gain a benefit. Like during the course of the game, I had titanium and a single point locked in down there, so getting destroyed for me was one step closer to victory. That's also a really cool function. The combat, which can usually in a lot of games take an excruciatingly long amount of time, is highly streamlined, but actually feels still very important. It feels very tactical, and when you engage in combat, you do feel like you're getting your world wrecked or absolutely blowing other people out of the sky. So that's the core structure. That's what's going on here with Andromeda's Edge. What are the highs and lows? What are the things that people should be paying attention to? Well, first off, we have some gameplay, some comparison to Dwellings of Eldervale. We have a lot of stuff coming out. But if you're a Dwellings fan, or if you think you'd be a Dwellings fan and you haven't been able to get your hand on a copy of that game yet, Andromeda's Edge is doing that, and in my opinion, better. Now, part of that is going to be just because of the theme. I really love the space opera. I love the exploration and conquer and the way that you can mix in weird and wacky, tropey things into the crux of a kind of hardcore strategy game. But along with that, I think some of the things that it's doing better right now is just the sheer progression, the tableau building. It's a little bit more streamlined in some ways while still having a better or a deeper complexity than I ever found with Dwellings of Eldervale. You can build out your tableau and activate your tableau more efficiently than, again, what I had felt there. Now, some of the things that might not work for you. Well, this is a crunchy Euro game. You've got a lot of little elements and a lot of moving parts, and if someone is able to figure out those puzzles better than you, they're probably going to crush you and win. Now, that doesn't mean you can't still have fun playing through the mechanics, but this is going to be a game that leans itself towards skill and tactical choices. Along with that, there can absolutely be moments where the player AP is a little bit extended. When you're pulling back ships and you're potentially activating something like 15 different actions, combination of ships being placed down, energy triggering things, the order and hierarchy of the way things trigger, and then tactics cards that actually change up that puzzle even more, this can get a bit overwhelming. There's definitely been moments where we've sat there at the table and waited for a player to take a few minutes to process and finish their turn. And while their turn is incredibly exciting for them, it's not quite as exciting for us. That being said, within a turn or two, you will be in a position where you get to take one of those actions, which will keep you invested and engaged with the game. Beyond that, there's not too much more I can say. I mean, I'm insanely excited to see what this looks like when it comes to the final punch, but I already know what Cardboard Alchemy does. You can check out Mission Catastrophe, you can check out Dwellings of Eldervale, you can check out Flamecraft, and see the production and care that goes into the actual formulation of the game. With game trays, inserts, with miniatures and tokens, and things that are just module and click into place. So, I don't know that that's a concern. Yeah. All I can say is that I have had an absolute blast diving into this, and I cannot wait to see it as it continues to develop and actually finishes off. I'm thrilled that I get a chance to show you all, the audience, first, and on top of that, if you're excited for more content, make sure you're subscribed down below. We're going to have so much more stuff coming our way. All right, I'll see you next time. Thank you.